Like for me, what was so exciting about being there was the sense of real mystery and magic about their property that, of course, I think is a part of what the South in itself is all about, and that it changes you, it transforms you.
There's this magical little bend in the road where my cell phone signal goes away. It's nice to just be able to let go of having to be connected.
I was learning about basically kind of like what it's like to be an artist full-time, to be able to just wake up, have coffee, and go start working on your artwork.
And you begin to get comfortable, and you begin to work, and your work begins to change, it begins to grow.
Every year, more than 100 artists and creative thinkers come to Hambidge to participate in their residency program and to take advantage of the peaceful and inspirational setting. Many come with a need to concentrate on a specific project or body of work, but all use the time to reflect upon their art and the creative process.
I was at a major turning point. There was a crisis with my work as an artist. I really felt like the art world had gone off and left me behind. So I was explaining this to a friend of mine, and she said, "You've got to go to Hambidge." The last thing I wanted to do was to set up in the middle of the woods and think about my art. But I decided, okay, it has worked for other friends, maybe it'll work for me.
Edna Lewis was my friend. She was a very famous cookbook author and chef, African-American woman whose grandparents were freed slaves. She lived most of her life in New York, had sort of an extraordinary career there, cooking for people like Greta Garbo and Truman Capote and Eleanor Roosevelt and Faulkner and Tennessee Williams. The director at Hambidge said, "You know, we've never had cookbook authors come here. Why don't you think about applying for a fellowship?" And so we did, and we went, and we were working on The Gift of Southern Cooking, and it was extraordinary.
In 1934, Mary Hambidge bought 600 acres on Betty Creek in the mountains of North Georgia. She lived there for the rest of her life, hosting friends and artists from around the world. She hoped to encourage creative people with a sanctuary and an opportunity to interact with other artists. When she died in 1973, her legacy lived on, offering artists throughout the country the setting, the solitude, and the time for the creative process. The only residency program of its kind for professional artists in the state, Hambidge today plays a critical role in supporting local, national, and international artists.
One of the most beautiful things that can happen for an artist when they're in a residence at Hambidge is that they get to meet other artists, and often friendships develop, and they continue those friendships and those relationships.
And I think the special thing about Hambidge is that it brings lots of different disciplines together. I'm a visual artist. I'm rarely around poets and writers, for instance. And so I found that just really inspiring.
It is just amazing what you can get done when it's quiet and it's peaceful, and the environment, the nature, nurtures you and encourages you to do your best.
It's sort of time with no strings attached for people who need to have some time. And I think that's the most amazing thing about it, that it's really just time to do whatever you need to do for your creative work, no questions asked.
It's just a great way to learn about your art and about yourself and about nature, you know, and meeting other people as well, all at the same time.
Artists who are selected to become Hambidge Fellows work in all mediums of art. With time alone and access to other creative thinkers, many artists have important breakthroughs in their work.
It was the first time that I'd ever seen watercress growing wild or ever tasted wild watercress. And the little stream that runs by Rock House, Miss Lewis would stand on the river banks, and I would be in my rolled-up pants legs up to my knees in mud, you know, harvesting wild watercress and wild mint that was growing there. And we would take those summer tomatoes and make watercress and tomato sandwiches, which I'd never had, and which wound up in the cookbook.
Having the Hambidge Center is just additional support so that this community gets stronger, so that it has more and more artists coming here, more and more artists staying here, and building a really strong and healthy community that's equal to any of the other cities.
This is so important for artists. And where would we be without the arts?
The strength of a region's art and culture depends in large part on the resources available to its artists. In the Southeast, Hambidge provides an environment that nurtures and supports creative people. The center provides a professional residency program for local artists and brings artists from other parts of the world to experience what our region has to offer in support of the creative process.
And when they have that opportunity to go away and come back to their community, they're bringing back better work. So that strengthens the community from which they live.